So hi, everybody. Welcome to our live webinar, Fueling Future Olympians, Elevate Your Game with Maximize, and with Dr. Bob Rakowski. My name is Ryan Hawkins. We're going to be working together for the next 40, 45 minutes, an hour, discussing on some very easy tips to implement to improve performance right now. This will not be the only webinar we're doing. We're going to be looking at elevating your game and changing your life and your performance over the next years together. So this is not the only one, but today Dr. Bob has come with some amazing tips that you can implement right away. Just to give a little background on Dr. Bob Rakowski, as you can see, he's worked with many different Olympic athletes, many different professional athletes, including Evander Holyfield, Michael Bennett, Tyson Gay, Bianca Knight, Yao Ming. He's an expert in getting people results very, very, very quickly. And therefore, he's developed a practice where he focuses on high level athletes or people who are very, very, very sick and need to get better very quickly. He is a chiropractic doctor, certified clinical nutritionist. He is a fellow, I believe, with the American Clinical Board of Nutrition. Are you not?
Yes. I am.
And he was a DBAC and a very successful businessman, mentor. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Dr. Bob, I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing. And I don't know if I would be in the place in my life that I am now. He's helped me tremendously between personal development, being a friend, and with my health. So thank you, Dr. Bob, for being here. I'm glad that some people are chiming in. I see Liam. Liam's a great young athlete who's super committed. So I'm glad to see Liam here. And I'll turn the floor over to you.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for the great intro. Thanks for your wonderful friendship. You know, part of what I've done is I've traveled the world and taught doctors how to get the most out of their practice and life. And let's face it, most people want to be better faster, right? Most people, if they come in, they have a problem, they want that better yesterday. And you athletes that are reaching for these extremes, you know, want to always raise the bar every single day. I don't know how many of you have heard of Steven Kotler. He's an amazing extreme sport author, traveled around the world with some of the most elites. And I believe it was his first book that was called The Rise of Superman. And what he was seeing was that athletes were changing the game so fast that they couldn't even imagine it was even possible. His latest book, The Art of Impossible, they've been studying this thing called the human flow state. It's been called the zone, just wherever you need to be to get the most out of your body, mind, and spirit, and essentially just meld into whatever activity that you're doing. So I was amazed. I was just talking to Ryan. He said he's already doing some triple flips. I don't know what the record is on that, but you know, it wasn't that long ago that people didn't even conceive of that. Now you get into these extreme environments and you need your body to be working absolutely perfectly in order to sometimes even get out of it alive. When it comes to achieving flow, you know, I think this is a little bit of a simplistic explanation, but very, very simply, you want to go in an area where you're challenging yourself, super high skill, high risk, but not too far beyond where you've been before. They suggest wherever your previous best was, probably a good graduated mark to increase would be about 3 or 4% per attempt. There's a researcher named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote the book called Flow. And over the last 5 decades, they've looked at the brain chemistry associated with it. So norepinephrine is a very strong pick-me-up brain chemical and body chemical. Dopamine is, interestingly enough, a chemical of fine muscle control, focus, and even extreme joy. And all those things describe the flow state. Anandamide is actually a cannabinoid that they now have found in the brain. They've even called it the bliss type molecule. Your body is in such a state of peace, time tends to stand still. Serotonin is certainly going to be happiness. Endorphins, that's going to be excitement and painkiller. And then oxytocin, interestingly enough, in extreme sports, they even call that the huddle hormone because it just gives you some relaxing, peaceful joyous sensation. So here's the first biohack that I'm going to mention. And if you start looking at that very first statement, it says chocolate stimulates all the major brain chemicals of the flow state. Isn't it interesting that this wonderful superfood that most people enjoy to a very high degree can put their body in a better state? The cleaner the chocolate, the more the synergist, the greater the probability of getting into flow. And Ryan can connect you to a mocha that's infused with something called reishi mushroom and or hot cocoa. And I'm going to talk a little bit about brain training that Olympians have used. I've lectured on the topic of sports nutrition all over the world now for over 3 decades, worked with thousands of athletes, including world champions from every major professional sport. And I'll often ask them, okay, what do you think is the most important part of your game? Where does the mental game rate in with the physical game? And interestingly enough, the best of the best consistently say that it's at least 90%. And I've even had a handful of athletes tell me that is 100%. So I had an elite NFL defensive back come in one time, and he had come off of a big game where he had 2 things happen. One, he gave up a long touchdown in the first quarter, and then in the fourth quarter he came back for a pick 6 to win the game. And I asked him, okay, how much is the mental game? He said, Bob, 100%. I said, come on, it can't be 100%. And he said, trust me, at my level, we all can play. We all have the physical skills. If our brain's in on the play, we can have a game changer. If it's not, just the opposite. Well, with snowboarding, a lot more risky than that. You're not going to give up a touchdown. You might not land something right, and we don't want that to happen. But Yogi Berra said this: baseball is 90% mental, the other half is physical. His math wasn't good, but he makes the point. It definitely is a mental game. Lanny Basham was an Olympic marksman who not only won gold medals, but trained others to win gold medals as well. And he said this: if high level competition is mostly mental, and again, the consensus is 90%, should you dedicate time to mental training? And Ryan had even mentioned that some of the Olympians that will either be watching this live or on replay actually do have sports psychologists, which, by the way, that's absolutely brilliant. Any edge that you can get, you should get. So Carolyn Kalb is a Canadian Olympic snowboarder. If you look on the top left, I cut an article out of something called NeuroTracker, which, by the way, was developed by a Dr. Faubert in Montreal. They've used this first with elite athletes. They started with soccer players in Manchester United. Then ultimately it went to American football, NBA, baseball, the military, business. And Ryan and I are even able to get you access to single versions of this, but she attributed her mental training to the NeuroTracker, which is essentially a gamified way of teaching your mind to follow objects in space. 6 minutes, 3 times a week, after 15 sessions, measurable improvement. And the more elite the athlete, the better the improvement. By the way, they now know that this can track your brain function so effectively that they even monitor concussion recovery in professional athletes. And in the military, they will actually train them or test them before battle to see if the soldiers are battle ready. Used to be $100 a session. That's US. You can get a whole year subscription for $300. And Ryan and I would be happy to hook you up with that if you are interested. Part of what makes the brain work better is an herb called Ganoderma lucidum, also known as reishi mushroom, which helps to deliver better nutrition to the brain, helps to energize the brain and body, reduces the stress in the brain and the body, and even helps to clear out toxins. Andrew Huberman certainly has one of the top podcasts on the internet, neuroscientist out of Stanford. They've known it now for decades that coffee can actually improve focus. Looks like, Ryan, you have your hand raised. So do you want to unmute and ask something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, Dr. Bob is a very smart man, and that he, some people might not realize this, but what he's talking about is it's very important to have the mental game there and meditation and things like that and NeuroTracker, but adding in the right brain biochemistry, which he's going to talk about right now, it just helps it so much more. I know when I got anxiety, I tried to meditate things away, but once I got the right brain biochemistry, meditation and everything else became much easier. And I just wanted to put that little caveat in there that getting the right biochemistry in your brain is super important, just as much as the other aspects, psychological and emotional.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now that you mentioned that calming, here's one thing that I have found very, very fascinating. Athletes have a way of calm. The calmer they are, the better. I'll tell a story about a brain study that was done on golfers. They put the brain EEGs, electroencephalograms, on golfers, specifically when they were on the putting green. And they found the difference between the person that was calmest on the putt versus those that were least calm, 3 strokes per 18 holes. And if you figure a tournament's 3 to 4 rounds, that's 9 to 12 stroke margin of victory. I had an elite college golfer come in, and he was being coached for anxiety. And when I gave him a Ganoderma, he had a latte, a reishi latte, before he got on the golf course. When he had one in my office, I asked him, I said, "How you feeling?" He says, "Wow, I can't believe this. My brain feels so focused." He had an upcoming tournament, and I said, "Look, I predict, drink one of these before your first 9 and then before the second 9, and I predict you'll have your best round ever." Very, very cocky young man. He came in on the following week, and I looked at him, I said, "Well, how'd you do?" He said, "Well, I didn't have my best round ever." I said, "Fair enough. How did you do?" He said, "I won by 17 strokes." And I asked the question, I said, "How in the world could you not have your best round and win by 17 strokes?" He said, "Bob, there were 80-kilometer-per-hour winds. No one's long game was good, but my putting was beyond amazing." So imagine if you can find your line and just get your body to obey it because your brain is calm and focused and motor control is there. Fuel is absolutely critical. It's amazing when they've done studies on snowboarding, how high your heart rate goes, how anaerobic you are, how much effort it takes. And you have to be very, very, very efficient at burning fuel. David Katz is the director of preventive research at Yale. He has been trying to change nutrition guidelines for all over the world now for decades. And politics seem to get in the way, but he makes a very interesting statement. He says, with most of our population, especially our young kids, being overweight, they are much more likely to be harmed by the way they eat than tobacco, drugs, alcohol, gangs combined. So we want to start putting good things into our bodies. This is a journal called Advances in Therapy. They actually went into people's bodies, took biopsies of their tissue, and measured their nutrition levels. They took people that were healthy, fit, strong, and realized that over 99% of the samples they looked at were deficient in at least one critical nutrient. They gave both groups a really good diet, non-processed, all organic, good fruits, vegetables, lean meats, and the other group got diet and supplementation. At 90 days, when they took tissue samples out again, they realized that there was not enough nutrition in the food to build the nutrient status. So the conclusion from the article was that food is too weak to replete depleted cells and bodies. Therefore, supplementation is advisable for everyone. One simple way to do that, top superfood on the planet, Ganoderma lucidum, certainly more magnesium than broccoli, more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more omega-3 critical for the brain than tuna, more protein than beans, more antioxidants than blueberries, more iron than spinach. When we start looking at acid alkaline buffers, whenever you're going down a run and you're in that tuck position and you feel that burning, that's lactic acid. And reality is lactic acid will decrease the efficiency of every hormone and enzyme in your body. And therefore, the better and stronger your alkaline buffers, the better you can handle that burn. This was a European journal. They talked about when people are becoming very, very ill, their body isn't healthy enough to process the acid and buffer it, there's no way they can do it without doing different types of alkaline supplements. There's medically proven effects to the alkaline diet, including improving the bone density, the muscle mass. I'll even say the brain function, even though this didn't list it, and protects against chronic disease as well. And again, better, stronger muscles perform better. This is a speed graph of Olympic sprinters, and I've had a lot of fun working with Olympians because I've yet to work with an Olympian that I couldn't make significantly better in just a few weeks by tuning up their nervous system and alkalizing them. But in this speed graph, the Olympic racer gets up to speed very, very fast, then starts to decline at 60 meters. So the first 3 seconds of energy production, stored ATP. The next 3 seconds is something called creatine phosphate. Creatine is an excellent sports nutraceutical. You then get into what's known as anaerobic glycolysis. And by the way, there's 12 different enzyme steps involved in making sugar from glucose. And therefore, you need to have all the nutrients to make that happen. But you need to buffer the acid. So there's a picture of Tyson Gay. There he is in my office. And there he was the last guy to beat Usain Bolt straight up in the 100 meters in the world championship. When Tyson came into my office, we did the type of assessment that we do. His body had a whole lot of acid. And I just looked at him. I said, look, looks like you slow down after 60 meters. And he looked at me and said, how did you know that? I said, look, your body's too acid. If you don't buffer that acid, it'll slow you down even more. If we improve that, it'll make you faster. He said, all right, let's make me faster. And as I tell people, he won that race. You can find it on YouTube. And he signed $1 million endorsement before his sweat even dried. Again, part of that protocol, Ganoderma lucidum, coffee, and tea. When it comes to inflammation, this popular superfood can reduce the inflammatory process by over a dozen different mechanisms, and it's also phenomenal for recovery. A lot of my mentors say that a great day starts the night before. So when people consume Ganoderma, they fall asleep faster, sleep deeper longer, and wake up more refreshed. One of our global brand partners, Manny Pacquiao, felt an immediate difference by adding this to his protocol. Thousands of published medical studies, many on the benefits for the brain. And again, it's amazing that a wonderful superfood that people enjoy, like mocha or hot cocoa infused with reishi, absolutely phenomenal to enhance focus and performance. So the flow state has been well defined over the last 5 decades. The more ways you get into it, the more time you spend in it, the faster and more effectively your training and performance will be, and likely your joy from it as well. What was once impossible now is becoming routine. As we learn more, we can make it happen more often. So with that said, if there are any questions about anything at all, certainly be happy to answer those for you. I think you're muted, Ryan.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Right now, Liam's here. Liam's a young 16-year-old that went to somewhere called Banger Park in Austria last year. And he just had like a revelation. He's been getting into training, really helping me actually on the tramp quite a bit. He's a super, super nice kid. And I know he's been getting into lifting weights. He hits the airbag multiple times a week. And he won second place in a Quebec competition last year. And he's looking to really up his game. So, Liam, if you're here and you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write a question in the chat box. While we're waiting for that, I might have a question for you. And if you would be open to that.
Of course.
Okay, so one of the things that comes up often when it comes to my athletes is, okay, well, one of the Olympians here was saying, I like being balanced in life. I don't like, if I feel like eating a poutine, I feel like eating a poutine, or like, what poutine is, right?
No.
Um, Poutine is like fries and gravy and cheese,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
But most of the time I eat well. So in your experience, getting people eating well, what percentage of the time, but adding in really good, strong quality supplementation, uh, do people have to become monks? Do they have to become, militant, or are they able to live their life and still enjoy certain foods, but also eat healthy and get the nutrients they need?
Well, the article in Advances in Therapy said very, very simply, no, you're not getting all that you need if you're just getting food. Supplementation is absolutely necessary, especially a good multi, good superfood, omega-3s, little extra vitamin D3, K2 combo. Those are things are critical, sometimes probiotics. But Ryan, everything counts, so every time you make a good choice, it's moving you closer towards your goal. Every time you make a bad choice, it's taking you further from.
Okay.
Now, it's ancient wisdom that the 80-20 rule really works for most people. Now, people that are young, fit, elite, training, they have a lot more latitude before they'll generally feel a problem. But keep in mind, everything counts. So, at very minimum, if you want to, you know, be competitive, 80-20 is a good rule. If you
Mhm.
want an edge, 90-10. If you want to be like Tom Brady, you're 99.9.1. Only certain people get to be the GOAT. Every bad choice is going to take away something from your performance. It's going to deplete you. So you want to minimize those. Just
Yeah.
depends on the level of commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Liam said he didn't have any questions right now. Um, After that, I might have an interesting question that I've gotten from a few athletes recently. And, we've had documentaries come out recently on Netflix, things like You Are What You Eat. Then there was Game Changers. And then there's also Paul Saladino, that is in my opinion, quite an intelligent man, but who's advocating the complete opposite of, the carnivore diet. And then you got the ketogenic diet. And then, so we didn't talk much about nutrition today. And we know that nutrition is important, but if you, with all your wisdom over 20 years practicing, meeting athletes and things like that, where do you kind of stand, and what is your opinion on all of these? Is there a place for them, and when?
Yeah, well, there always is, right? So extremes are seldom ideal. So it's very, very interesting that, our food supplies become so tainted, our soils have become so depleted. There's so many herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, that there are people like Jordan Peterson, who I think is a genius, and his daughter, Michaela Peterson, who is having just an absolutely severe rheumatoid arthritis case. She had multiple joints replaced by the time she was in her teens. So someone suggested she do an elimination diet, and the most extreme elimination diet that she could be on was the carnivore diet. And interesting enough, her rheumatoid arthritis resolved. And then Jordan Peterson had benefit, and a lot of people had benefit. But here's the deal: structure dictates function. Your hips work differently than your shoulders. Why? Because they're different. You wouldn't try to snowboard down a mountain and doing a handstand. It's not going to behave the same, nor would you try to pitch a baseball with your feet. So when you start looking at our gut, we do not have the gut of a lion, nor do we have the 5 stomachs of a cow. We have a gut that is designed to eat every type of food. That would be plant, that would be animal, that would be, concentrated fats, all these wonderful things. So it's been said that there's no consensus on what the best diet is, but there is consensus about what the worst diet is. And they call it the standard American diet, the modern American diet, the Western diet, the processed diet. So Jack LaLanne said this: if God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. So there is emerging research that this carnivore diet is pretty good for a lot of people, probably because I tell people there's more bugs in our gut than we have cells in our body. Every bug eats, drinks, and goes to the bathroom. the worst bugs in our gut tend to be vegan. So if you eat just carnivore, you starve off those bad bugs and you can reset the gut in something like 5 to 7 days. The longest I have put anybody on carnivore diet was 21 days. And this was a diabetic, obese, high blood pressure black male that wasn't responding to anything else. At 21 days, he lost about 20 pounds. Most of that was fluid, dropped his blood pressure and his blood sugar substantially.
Which
So
is the
short,
complete opposite of what we would hear in standard medical practice. Like meat's going
yeah.
to increase.
Well,
But
we've known for a long, long time that medicine's it doesn't know a whole lot about nutrition. The doctors that have any clue about nutrition are few and far between. And if we were to ask the question, how many drugs do healthy people take? None. So, if is it in medicine's best interest, pharma's best interest to have healthy people or sick people? I think we all know the answer to that one now. So every diet has a place. There's a 100-year-old vegan doctor. It's fascinating. He doesn't look a day over 70, and he's sharp as a tack. So I found it fascinating. I just came across him yesterday because I'm getting a lot more of those questions. What about vegan? What about carnivore? We're neither. We're omnivores. Can some people do well on either extreme? Yeah, but they're few and far between.
yeah, yeah, I like that. I love that response. I don't really have any other pertinent questions. Oh, Liam does. So Liam wrote, I guess you can see it as well. Hey, I have a question. I'm only 15 and I eat normally, not too bad, not perfect either. So what would be in the first thing I should change or add in my diet? I think go ahead, Dr. Bob, but a good supplementation with the mocha or the Ganoderma and things like that would be great.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to challenge him to have a mocha or a hot cocoa, whatever he prefers, before getting on the mountain or on the bag, as you would say, or I guess both. And I think you're going to find that your focus, your response, everything is going to be a lot better. But Liam, very, very simply, Jack LaLanne is a guy that was setting Guinness Book records in his 80s and 90s. I think on his 80th birthday, he was in a straitjacket with his hands and feet chained, and he towed an 80-foot boat with 80 people in it while swimming straitjacket, like kind of like a mermaid. It was absolutely amazing. But he said, if God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. And the best thing that I can do with my athletes, get them away from fast food, get them away from things in a package, and then every single day get a good amount of fruits, vegetables, water, and clean, healthy protein. I think you got me some moose a few years ago, which is epic. If you have access to wild game like that, my strongest athletes are those that eat the most wild game. It's very fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Liam, I hope that answers your question, but get your fruits in, get your veggies in for the gut and get some clean protein in. If you get clean things in, and I think Dr. Bob taught me this, but most of the time when you start bringing good things in, it's easier for your brain and it also naturally makes the bad things go out. Your brain, well, first of all, your brain chemistry won't crave bad things, but also your brain has this mechanism where, like, when you start doing good things for yourself, it's proud and it wants to do more good things, and it brings you in that upward cycle. Versus if you eat junk food, well, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll do it the next day, or I've already done this, so I might as well eat something else, and you go in that negative cycle. So if I were you, if you allow me, Dr. Bob, I would focus on bringing in the really good, and it'll probably naturally push out a lot of the bad.
It'd be fun for Liam to do a cycle of NeuroTracker and some mocha and see what happens. I bet everything gets better.
I work with his dad. So his dad works here. So I'll get him on it. And we can get you, Liam, by the way, all of that at cost price. So it will cost your dad next to nothing. So it'll be very cheap. So yeah, we'll help you out with that. I think that's it, Dr. Bob. I don't know. I do have a specific question, and it is for Liam. But I don't know if he wants to record it. So can we maybe...
Yeah, we can stop the recording.